From the studios, it's election yard, and the weather in the United States is starting to heat up. The Texas Senate race is heating up. We went through a primary at the beginning of this month, and now we are focused in terms of Texas on the result of the Texas Senate runoff. And guess what? We still have 2 months to go. This isn't until after Memorial Day that the runoff's going to happen, so expect there to be a lot of activity on the Republican side heading towards that late May runoff. For the Senate race, on the one side, you got John Cornyn, the incumbent senator, who has been in office since he was elected in 2002. And on the other side, you have the current Attorney General, Ken Paxton, who is trying to unseat Cornyn from his right and get into the Senate. So you got a lot going on. And then, of course, you got the general election, which is going to have the Democrat James Tallarico, who current polling suggests would be competitive with either, might be a little more competitive for one candidate over the other. But for this video, we are narrowly tailoring our focus on the Texas runoff. We're going to go through some polls. We're going to talk about what's happening and give our current assessment, which of course is subject to change. So we're going to show you all the polls that have come out since the primary, which was on March 3rd. Some of them have asterisks next to them that we put there, and we will explain what we mean. So the first poll that we're going to show you, this was a public policy polling poll. Came out really just a few days after the runoff. Survey dates were March 5th and 6th, 565 likely voters, and they found Paxton was in front 45 to 42. So of course that adds up to 87%, which means 13% undecided or did not want to answer. So that's a poll that has Paxton in the lead. They're I would say a more reputable national pollster. A lot of the other polls that you're going to see are perhaps less well-known national pollsters, and actually even one of them is an internal poll. But we're going to show you everything. So the next one we're going to show you, this one is from an outfit called Slingshot Strategies. They have Paxton up 49 to 41. On Senator Cornyn, this was taken March 7th and 8th, so almost a week after the primary. 781 likely voters in this one, 10% undecided in this race, but Paxton up 8 on Cornyn in this one. So peak insights. This one is the only one that we're going to show you that's a tie. So it's 45 to 45 Cornyn and Paxton. Of course, 10% undecided. This one was taken about a week after the primary, March 9th through 12th, 800 likely voters. So a margin of error under 4% here. So both candidates running even. And now the next one we're going to show you, this is from Impact Research. As I understand it, this was a James Tallarico internal poll. They had Paxton up with GOP likely voters 53 to 37. But notice the notes at the bottom here. It says the survey was taken March 12th through the 17th. But all the other data is unknown. So the top line poll of the state was 900 likely voters. We don't have a crosstab that shows you what the Republican sample was, but you can infer that the sample of Republican likely voters was a lot smaller than 900. We don't know exactly what the number is. We don't know exactly what the margin of error is. There is a chance it could be the smallest likely voter poll that we have out of all the ones I'm going to show you. So it's a good number for Paxton, but I would say take it with a grain of salt because we don't really have any crosstabs. We don't know how big the sample was. We don't know what the margin of error is. And now moving on to Change Research. This is another one that I am starring for you here. This one was taken March 17th through 19th. 807 registered voters has Paxton up 42 to 39. So that means, so it's 81%, so 19% undecided in this race. And it's registered voters. All the others have a likely voter screen. This one is just a registered voter screen. So with 19% undecided also, I'm going to tell you, some of those registered Republicans who are undecided, they probably just ain't going to vote. So some of them will go to Paxton. Some of them will go to Cornyn. We don't know how many, but some of them will not vote. So I would have liked to see a likely voter screen here, but we want to show you all this, just like with the last one, the Talarico internal. We want to show you everything. We don't want to be accused of leaving stuff out. We want to show you, but then explain why it might be questionable. And then the last poll that we're going to show you, this is the most recent one. It was taken March 21st through 23rd, and it's a big poll, 1,200 likely voters on this one, a margin of error under 3%, and they got Paxton with an 8-point lead, 49-41. So he's close to that 50% mark, still 10% undecided. I would say 10% undecided seems to be about the average. Of course, how those undecideds break is going to tell the tale, but like, for example, in a poll like this, if even 20% of those undecideds break for Paxton, he wins. So not a great poll for Cornyn here. And let's just talk about the polls that we just ran through and try to assess them a little bit. So John Cornyn doesn't lead in any of them. We gave you 6 polls that have been taken in March since the primary occurred, and Cornyn has not led in any of them. One of them was a tie. The other 5 were Paxton leads. Paxton was above 50% in one of them, but for reasons that we outlined, we don't know how reliable the information is. It could be entirely reliable. We just really don't know. But one thing that I would say is pretty obvious from the 6 polls that we just shared with you is that John Cornyn's numbers are really bad for an incumbent. He is, generally speaking, in the low 40s in these polls, I would say on average. He is an incumbent senator running for a 5th term in the U.S. Senate. He is well known. He should be doing a lot better than that. He should have won the primary without going to a runoff, but that didn't happen for him, and now it looks like his fate might be sealed. We'll get into that in a minute, but these numbers for an incumbent, if you're an incumbent, rule of thumb is you want to be at least 50%, whether it's in the primary or in the general election. You want to at least be at 50%. And Cornyn is well below that in every survey that we've seen so far. So just not very good numbers for him at all. And then there's the question, the ever-pressing question of Donald Trump. Will he endorse? Will he not endorse? At this point, I think what we're hearing is that he's not endorsing. It sounded like early on that he was going to endorse Cornyn. But put that one on hold because we still got 2 months to go in this thing. So let's just break it all down. This has been a nasty runoff. If you've seen any of what's going on in Texas, this has been a nasty runoff. So these 2 candidates, they have been trading insults. They are spending tens of millions of dollars to try to beat each other. And this is going to go on for another 2 months. I don't think the Republicans are having a great time with it, but trading insults, calling each other untrustworthy, pointing to all sorts of nasty things in the campaign. Again, 2 more months of this. So you can expect some more of that. But all that said, Ken Paxton would probably win if this election were held today. It's not held for another 2 months, but if it were, Ken Paxton would probably win. There's really no evidence, whether through polling or just the general sentiment coming through Texas, that anyone other than Paxton is going to win this race. I think it was just generally assumed that unless Cornyn somehow got 50% plus 1 vote, that going to that runoff that he would lose. There seems to be an anti-Cornyn sentiment. Of course, Paxton trying to primary Cornyn from his right. So I think more conservative Trump-aligned voters are going to angle towards Paxton, even though Ken Paxton himself has some well-documented baggage. So we'll just have to see whether Republicans go with an unpopular incumbent or a challenger with baggage. Either way, they're going to have to make a choice. So Donald Trump's involvement in this race still does loom if he gets involved at all. So I mentioned a minute ago that Trump was talking about potentially endorsing Cornyn, and now it doesn't look like he's doing it. Donald Trump is not going to endorse somebody that he thinks is going to lose, because it's very important to him to be on the winning side of these things. So if it looks like Cornyn's going down, he's not going to endorse Cornyn and save his ass. That's probably not going to happen. At the same time, I don't know if he's going to get involved and endorse Paxton. Right now, from what I've read in the news articles, it doesn't seem like Trump is looking to endorse at this point. But the reason that this is still here is because who's to say that Trump won't just change his mind tomorrow and endorse somebody? That is always a possibility. And there's still 2 months for that to happen. So just put a pin in that. And then finally, we'll point out that the Texas Senate race, we had it as tilt Republican in our initial ratings. We're going to keep it right there for now. We're not going to move it until after the runoff occurs. So there's maybe a thinking that Ken Paxton would do a slight bit worse against Tallarico than Cornyn would. We still have to see how the general election polls are going to look. That's how some of the polling looked prior to the primary. So we'll just have to see. But we're going to leave this right at tilt Republican for the next couple of months, at least, if not longer. Could it move to a toss-up? Could it move to lean Republican? Don't know. It's way too early to say. But I'll tell you one thing. The only way you're going to find out what we do with this race is if you subscribe to Election Yard. Follow us on social media. We'll see you soon.